Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna and you're watching A News. Now let's take a look at today's top stories. Donald Trump meets Viktor Orban in the Oval Office for Hungary-US bilateral talks. The US Senate rejects a bill to restore pay for workers hit by the shutdown. And Azerbaijan hosts a military parade marking the 5th anniversary of victory in the Second Karabakh War. US President Donald Trump welcomed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to the White House on Friday for their first bilateral meeting since Trump's return. Energy, the war in Ukraine and immigration topped the agenda, with Trump considering a possible exemption for Hungary from Russian oil sanctions.
US President Donald Trump welcomed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to the White House Friday for talks on energy, trade, immigration and the war in Ukraine. This marks the first bilateral meeting between the two leaders since Trump returned to the White House. The discussions included a potential exemption for Hungary from US sanctions on Russian oil, given the country's reliance on pipeline deliveries and its lack of ports for alternative energy supplies.
We're looking at it because it's very difficult for him to get the oil and gas from other areas. As you know, they don't have the advantage of having sea. It's a great country. It's a big country, but they don't have sea. They don't have the ports. And so they have a difficult problem. There's another country that has that same problem, by the way. But when you look at what's happened with Europe, many of those countries, they don't have those problems, and they buy a lot of oil and gas from Russia. And as they know, I'm very disturbed by that because we're helping them and they're going and buying oil and gas from Russia. So
would not take that hard line, what they have today. Pipeline is not an ideological or political issue. It's a physical reality because we don't have port, exactly as the President explained to you. So we will negotiate on that point. It's vital for us anyway.
The leaders also addressed US troop deployments in Europe. Officials confirmed that US forces would remain in Romania.
We'll remain troops in Romania, but there's some change in how we rotate and how many we rotate.
And the relationship with Romania is very good, right?
It's very good, and we've coordinated all this with Secretary General Rutte, throughout EUCOM, throughout our allies. Everyone was notified in advance.
Ukraine's war with Russia was a major focus. Trump indicated that he and Orban had discussed possible peace talks with President Vladimir Putin and suggested the conflict could end in the near future. Orban praised US efforts to mediate peace, contrasting them with what he described as a fragmented European approach, and emphasised Hungary's independent stance within the EU immigration and relations with the European Union were also discussed. Orban expressed confidence that Hungary could manage its EU conflicts and described hopes for a golden age in US-Hungary relations. The meeting came amid the longest US government shutdown in history. Trump blamed Democrats for the impasse, saying repeated votes by Republicans to reopen the government had been blocked.
14 times to open up the country, and the Democrats have voted 14 times to hurt the country, really. They should.
The White House talks underscored a shared agenda between the two leaders on energy, foreign policy and immigration.
The US Senate rejected a bill to resume pay for hundreds of thousands of federal workers affected by the ongoing government shutdown. The measure received 53 votes in favour and 43 against, falling short of the 60 votes needed to move forward. Most Democrats opposed the bill, saying it gave President Trump excessive control over federal worker pay during the shutdown. Labour unions urged lawmakers to act, warning that missed paychecks were hurting families. The shutdown, which began on October 1st, is now the longest in US history. Across the US, travellers are struggling as flight cuts caused by the government shutdown lead to long waits and sudden cancelled flights, just as the busy holiday season gets underway.
US air travel has been thrown into chaos as the ongoing government shutdown forces major flight cuts. More than 5,000 domestic flights were cancelled or delayed on Friday at 40 of the country's busiest airports, including New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. The Federal Aviation Administration has ordered airlines to reduce flights by 4%, rising to 10% next week if the shutdown continues. The move is designed to ease pressure on air traffic controllers, essential workers who are still required to report for duty without pay. Many have called in sick or taken second jobs, citing stress and fatigue. From cancelled flights to long security queues, travellers have voiced worries about making it to their destinations.
I was a little nervous, but it's a trip I have to take. I have a relative who's not feeling well, so can't let the circumstances stop me.
Travellers say things don't seem to be looking up, especially with the holidays approaching.
It really stinks that the government is affecting travel like this. Everyone deserves to, be able to go on their flights, go on their way, visit their families. The holidays are coming up, and if this continues, this is going to end up being a big problem.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely gets worse. I mean, as controllers start to take time off, I can only imagine they're not getting paid. So that affects travel. For example, going down to Jacksonville, those controllers have a tendency to take off and get overwhelmed. So that affects all the travel going south.
For now, travellers are left navigating delays, cancellations and uncertainty as the political impasse shows no sign of ending.
And now in news from Europe, drone scares in Belgium have grounded flights and sparked new security measures. Germany is stepping in with counter-drone teams while the EU sends a firm message to candidates: pick a side as membership talks grow sharper. For more, our correspondent Anita Sharma has the details.
Welcome to this day in Europe, where the drone scare continues in Belgium and beyond. Airports in Brussels and Liège were temporarily closed this week after repeated sightings that Belgian officials now describe as a coordinated attack. The National Security Council held a session after the drones appeared over bases and airports, disrupting and diverting flights from Brussels' main airport. Authorities are now considering establishing an airspace surveillance center, as well as introducing mandatory registration of drones. Defense Minister Theo Franken says the National Airspace Security Center will open by the new year. Meantime, Germany is stepping in, deploying new rapid response counter-drone units. Lieutenant General Alexander Solfrank, Germany's Joint Operations Commander, says the teams use sensors and interceptors to take control of drones and land them safely. More such teams will be stationed across Europe in the coming weeks. Now, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius says the incidents in Belgium were intended to spread insecurity and fear-mongering with the message, "Don't you dare touch the frozen Russian assets." Pistorius warns it, quote, cannot be interpreted any other way. He links the incidents to tensions over whether Belgian-held Russian assets should fund Ukraine's war effort, an allegation Moscow denies. Still in Brussels, the EU sends another warning to would-be members that neutrality between the West, Russia, and China will no longer be tolerated. Enlargement Commissioner Marta Koos tells Euronews that candidate countries must choose sides before joining the bloc. This after the European Commission updated the enlargement process for candidates, including Ukraine, Moldova, and the Western Balkans. Analysts say the statement reflects a harder geopolitical line. Joining the EU now means joining the West strategic camp. On Georgia, the commission said it is a candidate country, quote, in name only, following the precarious parliamentary election last year and disputed results by the opposition. The commission sees Montenegro as the front-runner country to join next, along with Albania. It also highlighted Moldova's efforts and urged Ukraine to continue its reform agenda, especially regarding corruption. And finally, the fallout continues in Paris after that spectacular October heist at the Louvre Museum. A French state auditor's report sharply criticizes the museum for using security funds to buy art in the years before the robbery. The 153-page report states that security budgets dropped by 1/3, leaving staff undertrained and cameras outdated. The Louvre says it's already started tightening oversight and is investing in new safeguards. These are the stories we are following for you. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in Arnhem, Netherlands.
A Russian airstrike hit a suburb of Ukraine's Kharkiv on Friday, destroying a gas station and injuring 5 people. Kharkiv officials reported that the attack was carried out with a guided aerial bomb. Emergency workers searched through the debris and a large crater was seen beside the damaged building. Russia's defense ministry said it conducted multiple cluster strikes across Ukraine this week, targeting military and energy infrastructure. The ministry cited that the attacks were in response to Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian civilian sites. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia is gathering troops near the city of Vovchansk in the northeastern Kharkiv region. He told reporters in Kyiv that Moscow's attacks on the eastern city of Pokrovsk were meant to show military success to US President Donald Trump. Zelensky added that Russian forces suffered heavy losses in October, with about 25,000 soldiers killed, mainly due to Ukrainian drone strikes.
It is very important for Russia to do everything to really capture Pokrovsk in any format, to show success on the battlefield, whether it is going to be Vovchansk or something else. They need to show success. Then they will be able to try to return the narrative. We told you that we will capture Donbas.
Global temperatures are rising faster than at any point in recorded history. Scientists say the effects are already visible in heat waves, storms, and shifting ecosystems.
Global temperatures are rising at record speed, pushing more extreme weather and visible damage to ecosystems, with new NASA data showing the planet has already warmed about 1.3 to 1.4 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. Average global temperatures are climbing about 0.27 degrees Celsius per decade, nearly 50% faster than in the 1990s and 2000s.
Right, we've warmed the planet by about 1.5 degrees Celsius since the 19th century, and that is halfway to the Pliocene. And the Pliocene was the period 3 million years ago that was the last time that it was actually quite warm, and that was only 3 degrees Celsius warmer than the pre-industrial. So we're halfway there, but not in millions of years, in 150 years.
Sea levels are also rising faster, now about 4.5 millimeters per year over the last decade, compared with 1.85 millimeters per year since 1900. The warming is already pushing some ecosystems toward tipping points. Researchers warn the Amazon rainforest could transform into savanna if deforestation and warming continue.
The impacts of climate change on extreme heat. We're seeing it on extreme rainfall. We're seeing it on sea level rise and storm surges if you're in a coastal area. We're seeing it in wildfires. And it is now no longer possible to just say, oh, you know, this is just something that the scientists worry about. It doesn't affect normal people. It's affecting normal people, and it's affecting them all over the world.
In 2024 to 2025, around 3.7 million square kilometers burned in wildfires, producing record CO2 emissions. Heat waves and high temperatures are reducing worker productivity and causing tens of thousands of heat-related deaths in Europe alone. Experts stress that normal weather patterns are shifting.
Well, but there's no normal, because that implies that we're just going to stay where we are, and we're not. Things are continuing to get worse. For us to stabilize global warming, even at the level it is now, effectively we have to get to net zero. We have to stop emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that's a huge challenge. So that isn't going to happen anytime soon, and so that means that while that's not happening, temperatures are going to increase, and the extremes are going to become more extreme.
And as temperatures continue to rise, the world is now watching whether action will match the scale of the challenge.
Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Azerbaijan marks its 5th Victory Day anniversary. During his address at the military parade, President Ilham Aliyev congratulated the people of Azerbaijan. He expressed his gratitude to all countries that supported Azerbaijan in achieving victory, with special appreciation extended to the governments and peoples of Turkey and Pakistan.
President of the Republic of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, provided support to Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijani people, and the Azerbaijani army from the first hours of the Second Karabakh War. His political and moral support gave us strength and inspired us.
Bize verdiği siyasi ve manevi destek bize elave güç verirdi, bizi ruhlandırırdı. Pakistan devleti ve halkı.
The state and people of Pakistan demonstrated support and solidarity with Azerbaijan during the 44-day patriotic war. Today, for the first time, Pakistani servicemen are participating alongside us at Azadlig Square. This is a manifestation of the unity of the peoples and armies of 3 countries, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Pakistan.
Halklarının, ordularının birliğinin tezahürüdür.
Earlier today, Baku hosted a military parade dedicated to Victory Day. Our own Leila Rahimli has sent us this report from the venue. Let's take a look.
This morning, Baku woke up to a different kind of energy. You can sense it all around Freedom Square. Families, veterans and young people lining the streets, soldiers taking their positions, flags are everywhere. It's the 5th anniversary of Azerbaijan's victory in the Second Karabakh War, and this time it's not only about remembering what happened 5 years ago, it's about what comes next. Troops from every branch of the armed forces are in formation, and we'll be seeing the latest in military technology, from drones and rocket systems to heavy armor and aviation displays. And of course, the highlighted joint flypast by the Azerbaijani and Turkish air forces, including 6 Turkish F-60s cutting through the Baku sky. But as impressive as it looks, this parade carries a deeper message. President Erdogan is here along with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif. Their presence reminds everyone that this isn't just a military celebration, it's a political moment too, one that reflects the region's new reality. In his speech, President Ilham Aliyev congratulated the nations on the 5th anniversary of what he called our glorious victory, and paid special tribute to Turkey and Pakistan for their solidarity during the war. He highlighted the participation of Pakistani servicemen in today's parade for the first time, calling it a symbol of unity among the 3 nations, Azerbaijan, Turkey and Pakistan. Because this year, the world, everyone keeps coming back to is peace. Back in August, in Washington, President Ilham Aliyev and Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan met under U.S. mediation, with President Donald Trump attending as a witness. That meeting was seen as both symbolic and strategic, opening what many described as a cautious, structured step toward a possible peace agreement. For the first time, both sides agreed on practical measures, reopening transport roads, restoring communication lines, and working toward a more connected South Caucasus. And maybe that's what makes today different. And So that's what we've been seeing here in Baku, a city celebrating victory, but also talking about the future. That's all from me for now. Stay tuned to A News for the latest updates and live moments from Freedom Square.
And 5 years on from the war, the South Caucasus is witnessing a new reality. Long-awaited peace is finally defining a time of growth and opportunity. In this report, we take a closer look at how policy and logistics have evolved across the region.
Thinking of modern war, one pictures drones in the sky, ultrasound weapons cutting through clouds, and machines crushing every threat. Yet beneath this high-tech facade, one element endures through time. Strategy. For centuries, strategy has shaped not only victories but also the political realities that follow. In 2020, the Second Karabakh War struck like a hammer against the glass wall that had frozen South Caucasus politics for 3 decades. The conflict broke the long stalemate, exposing how the status quo had suppressed dialogue, trade and cooperation. The region had long suffered under the divide and rule strategies of external powers, enduring manipulation, occupation and deliberate degradation. The Second Karabakh War, which lasted 6 weeks, broke this vicious cycle, bringing an end to the conflict that long been weaponized. The world's reaction to the war largely shaped the policies that followed its end. Some players stayed passive, others neutral, and a few openly took sides. Like a chain, the long-lasting Karabakh conflict had been binding together regional powers such as Russia, Turkey and Iran, along with their competing narratives. The dynamics shifted sharply when these countries began to see Karabakh as a resolved matter, no longer in need of mediation. For the first 3 years, Russia cast itself as the sole mediator, deploying peacekeepers to manage a fragile truce. In turn, Turkey, another major player, took a firm stance and insisted on having a role in the peacekeeping mission, signalling that Moscow could no longer treat the region as its back garden. Turkey's post-war role in regional projects would only grow with time. Western mediation, which had brought little progress for Azerbaijan over 3 decades of status quo, shifted its focus to post-war agenda. Facing conflict within its Eastern Partnership region, the European position was largely limited during the war to expressing concern through official statements. Its end opened a new window of opportunities for the West to restore its influence in the region. Azerbaijan's oil and gas became a valuable alternative for Europe, which had long relied on Russian energy. New logistics projects promised fresh momentum for East-West trade and the expansion of economic cooperation. The Second Karabakh War also exposed the fragility of international organizations and their documents. Baku says it has effectively implemented 4 UN Security Council resolutions that had remained on paper and ignored for 3 decades. The outcomes of the 44 Days War highlighted how global bodies failed to enforce their decisions, exposing their limits and failures more clearly than ever. Critical logistical corridors, long squeezed like arteries by the conflict that had blocked economic growth, regional integration, and investment, were freed after the war. Fast forward to 2025 and a new transportation corridor, named the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, has been agreed between the leaders of the former warring sides through US mediation. The outcomes of the 2020 war also pushed foreign powers out of direct influence, turning a legacy of domination and manipulation into a new era of cooperation prospects among regional actors. As new challenges and opportunities arose, Azerbaijan emerged as a nation with a stronger regional voice. The Second Karabakh War marks both a geopolitical reset and an economic awakening, with the potential to finally integrate the South Caucasus into broader regional and global networks. It has sent ripples across the Black Sea-Caspian belt, a region connected not only by pipelines and transportation corridors, but also by history and future.
For the first time in more than 30 years, cargo trains are operating between Azerbaijan and Armenia once again. A route previously frozen by conflict, now reopening through cooperation. Baku's move to lift transit restrictions marks a rare moment of progress and perhaps the start of regional reconnection. A News' Aysel Ibrahimova reports.
As Azerbaijan lifts restrictions on freight transit with Armenia, a new road is emerging that strengthens regional connectivity. Today, one of the first trains to Armenia passes through this railway via Azerbaijan.
The restored Azerbaijan-Armenia cargo transit passage has reopened a key regional transport route linking Kazakhstan, Russia, Azerbaijan, Georgia and Armenia. The move marks a significant milestone after 35 years of closure between the two countries. President Ilham Aliyev made the announcement removing this restriction during his state visit to Kazakhstan last month.
I must also note that Azerbaijan has lifted all restrictions on cargo transit to Armenia that had been in place since the occupation. The first such transit shipment was a delivery of Kazakh grain to Armenia. I believe this is a clear indicator that peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia is no longer only on paper, but also in practice.
On Thursday, a train carrying Kazakh wheat to Armenia passed through Azerbaijan via Baku, marking the second batch of grain transported along this route.
Yesterday, a train carrying nearly 1,000 tons of grain in 15 wagons arrived at the Yalama station in Azerbaijan from Kazakhstan. 15 of those wagons have already reached the Bilachari station. The train will continue its route along the Bilajari-Hachigbul line. From there, the cargo will be transported through Georgia and into Armenia. It should also be noted that in the next stage, additional shipments of cargo are planned to be sent from both Russia and Kazakhstan.
The batch, which transited through Azerbaijan a day earlier, has already arrived in the country. Armenia's Minister of Economy described the development as a historic milestone for the nation.
First of all, it should be noted that for nearly 35 years, cargo had not been transported to Armenia via this route, which passes through the territory of Azerbaijan, and there had likewise been no movement in the opposite direction. In this context, today is a historic day. The development carries significant importance for the diversification of economic and logistical connections. It should also be noted that this forms part of the peace agenda approved in Washington on the 8th of August.
Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan called the development an important step in implementing the agreements reached in Washington and emphasized the need for two-way cargo movement.
The situation is dynamic and new requests are emerging. It is also necessary to assess how the reverse flow of cargo from Armenia to Russia, Kazakhstan and other countries can be organized. I am confident that, over time, the nature and progress of the situation will become clear to the public. I believe this is indeed a very significant and important development. In this regard, I would like to once again express my gratitude and reaffirm our readiness to ensure the transit of freight trucks between Turkey and Azerbaijan in both directions, from Turkey to Azerbaijan and from Azerbaijan to Turkey.
According to Russia's transport ministry, by the end of January 2026, a total of 132 wagons of Russian wheat will be delivered to Armenia via the railway routes passing through Azerbaijan and Georgia. In addition to grain, other categories of cargo are also being considered for transportation along this route.
Iran and the United States have exchanged new remarks as tensions remain high. The latest statements signal differing positions on military pressure and future talks. Our Turaj Shireliliu has more from Tehran.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the country's ballistic missile capabilities played a decisive role in changing the course of the June conflict involving Israel and the United States. Speaking in Hamadan on Thursday, he said Iran's missile strikes force its adversaries to accept an unconditional ceasefire, despite US and European support for Israel. Araghchi also said Tehran rejected US ceasefire terms, citing distrust after attacks on Iranian nuclear sites during ongoing talks with Washington. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump told reporters that Iran had inquired about the possible lifting of unilateral sanctions. He said he was open to hearing Tehran's proposal, though Iran has not officially responded. Earlier this week, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei ruled out talks with Washington, accusing the US of backing Israel, maintaining regional bases, and interfering in Middle Eastern affairs. Turaj Shiralilu, Tehran, A News.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.